Idol. Session is now called to order. The chair would like to ask everybody to please rise and remember that we are in the holy presence of the Lord. Please say a silent prayer. Amen. Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiging, sa manlulupit, di ka pasisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagtitigil, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng marahangit pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya dapat may mga apit, magmamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we defer the calling of the roll. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? There being none, motion is hereby approved.
Mr.
The
Speaker,
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles and bills resolutions on first reading as well as communications and committee reports. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? There being none, motion is approved. Mr. Secretary General, you are hereby directed to please carry out the motion.
Reference of business, bills on first reading, House Bill 6260, renaming the Lubog Bridge in Plaridel, Misamis Occidental as Alfonso Burlat Abduhan Bridge by Representative T.
Okay.
Diego.
To the Committee on Public Works and Highways.
House Bill 6261, mandating the oversight and audit of government intelligence and confidential funds by Representative Gaite, Sarate, and Kulyamat.
To the Committee on Public Accounts.
House Bill 6262, increasing the benefits of barangay officials by Representative Crisologo.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 6263, creating the Magna Carta for barangay health workers by Representative Romero.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 6264, providing for additional benefits and privileges to public councilors by Representative Saulo.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Bill numbers 6265 and 6267, codifying the alternative child care laws by Representatives Roman and Alonte.
To the Committee on Welfare and on Children.
House Bill 6266, renewing the franchise granted to Panay Telephone Corporation by Representative Marquez.
to the Committee on Legislative Franchises,
House Bill 6268, establishing the Baguio City, La Trinidad, Itogon, Sablan, Tuba, and Tublay Special Economic Zone in the province of Benguet by Representative Go Mar.
to the Committee on Economic Affairs and the Committee on Trade and Industry,
House Bill 6269, granting automatic civil service sub-professional eligibility to graduates of 4-year courses in colleges and universities by Representative Biolago.
to the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation,
House Bill number 6270 and 6271, creating various barangays in the province of Agusan del Sur by Representative Bascog.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill 6272, superseding Presidential Decree number 851 and its IRR by Representative Yap Eric, Tulfo, and Taduran.
to the Committee on Labor and Employment,
House Bill 6273, amending the revised Penal Code's Article 315 by Representative Eric Yap, Tulfo, and Taduran.
to the Committee on Revision of Laws,
House Bill 6274, creating the Philippine Veterinary Hospital by Representative Lopez.
to the Committee on Agriculture and Food,
House Bill number 6275, amending Section 6, Chapter 2, Title 2 of Presidential Decree 198 as amended by Representative Del Mar.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill number 6276, institutionalizing National Oral Health Program by Representative Tan Angelina.
to the Committee on Health,
House Bill number 6277, establishing the Magna Carta for Barangays by Representative Dalipe.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill number 6278, converting the municipality of Bataraza in Palawan into a component city to be known as the City of Bataraza by Representatives Abueg Saldivar and Acosta.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill number 6279, mandating the creation of an extended producer responsibility scheme to address leakage of plastic waste into the environment by Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Ecology,
House Bill number 6280, reforming the Komisyon ng Wikang Filipino into the Komisyon ng Mga Wika sa Pilipinas by Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill number 6281, penalizing the use of sidewalks for commercial and/or personal purposes by Representative Guico.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill number 6282, establishing an elementary school in Paldit, Sison, Pangasinan, to be known as the Paldit Elementary School by Representative Guico.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
Resolutions. House Resolution 710, directing the Committee on Labor and Employment to inquire on the continuing violence against workers and criminalization of labor disputes by Representatives Gaite, Zarate, Culyamat, Castro Franz, Brosas, and Elago.
to the Committee on Rules,
House Resolution 712, expressing full support of the House to the bid of the City of San Jose del Monte in Bulacan to become a UNESCO Creative City and to be included in the UNESCO Creative Cities Network to give honor and pride to the country by Representative Robes.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Resolution 713, urging all national government agencies to conduct congressional consultations as mandatory procedure in preparing their proposed annual budgets by Representative Savellano.
to the Committee on Appropriations,
House Resolution 714, directing the Committee on Health to inquire into the implementation of Republic Act number 7305 by Representative Castelo.
to the Committee on Rules,
House Resolution 715, urging His Excellency President Rodrigo Roa Duterte to temporarily suspend the operations of all POGOs in the country by Representative Suntay.
to the Committee on Gains and Amusements,
House Resolution 717, directing the appropriate House committees to inquire into the alleged violations of PD number 1529 by
To the
Representative
committee-
Acop.
to the Committee on Rules,
House Resolution 718, expressing congressional commendation and congratulations to Dalisay by Renucci Rice for winning the third best rice in the world during the 11th Annual World Rice Conference held last November 12, 2019 by Representatives Romualdez Yeda and Romualdez Ferdinand.
To the Committee on Rules.
Communications. Letter dated January 24, 2020 of Cesar R. Dulay, Commissioner BIRDOF, submitting their consolidated monthly report of disbursements and statement of approved budget utilizations, disbursements and balances for trust receipts for the quarter ending December 31st, 2019.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated January 28, 2020 of Minerva M. Vertucio, Vice President DBP, informing the House of the status of implementation of the Barangay Micro Business Enterprises Act of 2002 as of December 31st, 2019.
To the Committee on Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development.
Letter dated January 31st, 2020 of Aurora C. Ignacio, President and CEO, SSS, providing the House a copy of the 2019 Report of Operation and 2018 Annual Report of the SSS.
To the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization.
Letter dated January 31st, 2020 of Ernesto M. Pernia, Secretary NEDA, submitting the NEDA's Physical Report of Operations as of December 31st, 2019.
To the Committee on Economic Affairs.
Letter dated February 4, 2020 of Marilu P. Mendoza, Chairperson, Tariff Commission, informing the House that various reports are posted on the Commission's website.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated February 5, 2020 of Ernesto M. Pernia, Secretary of Socio-Economic Planning and Head, LEDAC Secretariat, submitting the fourth quarter financial and physical accomplishments.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letters dated February 6 and 7, 2020 of Janice G. Aison Zales, Deputy Director, Office of General Counsel and Legal Services, BSP, furnishing the House with duly certified and authenticated BSP issuances.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
A conspectus of the Optical Media Board 2019 Annual Report.
To the Committee on Public Information.
2019 Volume 3, Balitang DAR, the official newspaper of the DAR, special edition entitled Dare to Give It All.
To the Committee on Agrarian Reform.
Committee Report. Report number 232 of the Committees on Basic Education and Culture, Youth and Sports Development, Ways and Means and Appropriations on House Bill number 6312.
To the Committee on Rules. The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I request that this representation's guests be acknowledged. They are Rotarians from the Republic of Korea, from Rotary International District 3710, District Governor Dong-ho Park, Mr. Yoon Suk Kim, Mr. Sang Gu Kang, Mr. Shing Heng, President Mark Hong Jae, Ms. Inye Kim, accompanied by District Governor Yvette Olivan from Rotary International District 3820, and District Governor nominee designate Gina C., and past District Governor Ray David from District 3780.
To the distinguished guest of Congresswoman Bernadette B.H. Herrera D., welcome to the House of the People. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's my distinct honor and privilege to greet the guests of Congressman Quaresma, namely Barangay Captain Siguja Ferrer of Barangay Bonfal West, Barangay Captain Ronnie Acob of Barangay Magsaysay, Barangay Captain Barnacha of Barangay Santa Rosa, Barangay Captain Pagtulingan of Barangay District 4, Barangay Captain Bausel of Barangay Magapuy, Kapitan Arthur Fortes of Barangay Ipil, Cuneg, Kapitan Butali of Barangay Kabuan, Kapitan Sullivan of Barangay Bansing, and Kapitan Dumelob of Barangay Don Tomas Madelia.
to the guests of Congresswoman Quaresma of Nueva Vizcaya, the barangay officials of Nueva Vizcaya, welcome to the House of Representatives na imbag nga malam kada kayo amin na po. Please, thank you. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we suspend for a few minutes in order to prepare for the incoming interpellations and the other sponsors of speeches. I so move, Mr.
Is
Speaker.
there any objection? There being none, session is hereby suspended for a few minutes.
Ano? Game na? Saan? Last answer. Ito na, oh. Ha?
Session is hereby resumed. With the indulgence of the Majority Floor Leader, the Chair would like to take this opportunity to greet one of the distinguished members of this House. A happy birthday, Congresswoman B.H. Herrera. Happy birthday. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before I move to call the roll, we in the majority in the Rules Committee would like to especially also greet our colleague, Congresswoman B.H. Herrera, a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Mr. Speaker, I move to call the roll.
Yes, Sir Secretary General. Is there any objection? There being none, please, Secretary General, proceed with the roll call.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Andaya, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bulilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabotyan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coangco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Datol, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, Del Mar, De Los Santos, Deloso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Muhammad Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian Paul, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria Cristina, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet Marie, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed Christopher, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio Dong, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Carlo Lisandro, Goriseta, Guico, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marinho, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan Fidel, Nolasco, Nunez Malanyaon, Uaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Ramos, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sagtalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Saveliano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sharian, Tan Sherney, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo Brother Eddie, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 213 members responded to the call.
With 213 members responding to the call, and as provided for or in accordance with our rules, those attending the meetings of CA, which is 11, and the authorized committee meetings, there are 33 members that are there, and on official mission, there are 8 of them. 53 committee meetings. They are also included, they are also deemed present in today's session. And therefore, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we resume consideration of Committee Report number 5, House Bill 78, more popularly known as an act providing for the definition of public utility, further amending for the purpose, Commonwealth Act number 146, otherwise known as the Public Service Act as amended. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? There being none, motion is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of this bill is that we already finished and terminated the period of amendments. So right now, Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading for the approval of House Bill number 78. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Second reading?
Mr. Speaker, as an addendum, this is principally authored by the genius of the House, Congressman Salceda.
The chair declares those who are in favor of House Bill number 78, authored by the very distinguished chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, Congressman Salceda. Those who are in favor of this measure, say aye. Those who are against, say nay. The ayes have it. This this bill is approved on second reading. Congratulations, Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 5832, Committee Report 142, an act creating the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment, defining its mandate, powers and functions, and appropriating funds thereof.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Marino, Chairperson of the Committee on Government Organization, to continue the period of interpellations and to do his sponsorship speech if needed so. I
The
so move.
distinguished gentleman from Batangas, Honorable Marino, is hereby recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as I
Majority
said a
Floor
while
Leader.
ago, the parliamentary status of the said bill is that we are in the period of interpellation. And I move we recognize the Honorable Lagman to do his interpellation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The distinguished gentleman from Bicol is hereby recognized. Honorable Lagman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From Albay, because Bicol is comprised of 6 provinces.
The distinguished gentleman from Albay is hereby recognized.
Would the distinguished sponsor yield?
It would be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, what is the national policy on the deployment of Filipino workers overseas?
The policy of the government right now is to protect and help our Filipino overseas workers working abroad, Mr. Speaker.
Is that all?
Well, as far as I know, that is the primordial policy, and also to help them when they come back to the Philippines as far as programs and the new opportunities are concerned when they return to the Philippines.
Has the distinguished sponsor read the Declaration of Policies under Republic Act number 8042 or the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995?
No, Mr. Speaker, but the policy of this new bill would be similar to those mentioned by the Honorable Lagman, which is to protect the rights and promote the welfare of interests of Filipino overseas workers, and also to provide job opportunities here in our country, and also to recognize that they are the primary concern of the government, and also they are to be empowered as far as protection of their rights and also the skills when they return to the Philippines.
Well, that is not the overriding policy. But does the distinguished sponsor have a copy of Republic Act number 8042?
I will get a copy, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, that the distinguished sponsor is looking for a copy, may we request for a suspension so that the time will not be taken against this representation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The majority floor leader, please put that into a motion.
Mr. Speaker, before we grant the suspension, oh no, let's just suspend. Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend the session.
Session suspended for 2 long minutes.
Sabi niya, he has a series of questions which requires a secretary.
Session is hereby resumed. Majority floor leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we suspend consideration of House Bill number 5832 as contained in Committee Report 142. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to suspend consideration of House Bill 5832. Is there any objection? There being none, consideration of House Bill 5832 is hereby suspended. Distinguished Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So before we continue, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the guests of the Honorable Florida Rida Robes, the representative of the Lone District of San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. We have with us, Mr. Speaker, the City Government Employees Association of San Jose del Monte City, Bulacan, namely Attorney Antonio Andres Jr., Mr. Jesus Sabit, Mr. Edsel Kiben, Ms. Gina Lynn Ignacio, Ms. Margaret Lynn Martinez, Ms. Diodalyn Quezon, Mr. George Hayagan, Ms. Helen Plandano, Mr. Randy De La Peña, Mr. Renato Baldos, Mr. J.P. Diaz Mr. Michael Naig, Ms. Gemma Cruz, and Ms. Shirley Mendoza.
To the guests of Honorable Florida Robes, the City Government Employees Association of San Jose del Monte City in Bulacan, mabuhay ho kayong lahat. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the guests of Honorable Francisco Jose Bingo Matugas II from the LGU of Malimono, Surigao del Norte. They are the following: Mayor Wallace R. Sinaca, Sangguniang Bayan Member Marian Marina A. Escanio, Punong Barangay Reynaldo Tipani o Barangay Karihatag, Punong Barangay Candelario Sinaca o Barangay Pili, Punong Barangay Renato M. Borja o Barangay Canaga, Punong Barangay Artilier June Kini o Barangay Villariza, Punong Barangay Adelard Mantala o Barangay Cantapoy, Punong Barangay Mary Jane Capestrano o Barangay Masgad, Punong Barangay Leda Lubang, Punong Barangay Carlito Orias Sr., Punong Barangay Jesselu Ortiz, Punong Barangay Romualdo Bibera, Punong Barangay Samson Macarine, Punong Barangay Eloyo Ferrol Jr., Punong Barangay Anacleto Senaca Jr., Ms. Rosalina Sering, Municipal Local Government Operations Officer, Mr. Ronald de la Serna, Municipal Environment, Natural and Resources Officer, and Mr. Artemio S. Juarez, Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Officer.
To the distinguished guest of Honorable Francisco Jose Bingo Matugas II, the barangay officials, Sangguniang Bayan members, the MLGOO, the MENRO, and the MDD RMO. Mabuhay po kayong lahat. Welcome to the House of the People. Welcome to the House of the Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we also acknowledge the presence of the guests of Congressman Duke Frasco of the 5th District of Cebu, Mayor Christine Garcia Frasco, and Mayor of Liluan, Cebu, and the wife of Congressman Duke Frasco of the 5th District of Cebu City.
The distinguished guest of Congressman Brasco of Cebu City, the mayor, and the wife of Congressman Brasco, who happens to be that the Congressman Brasco is the Congress and the wife is the man. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we resume consideration House Bill 5925. I so move, Mr. Speaker. And in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Secretary General to read the title of the bill. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the consideration of House Bill 5925? There being none, motion is hereby approved. The Secretary General will read the bill. Title of the bill.
House Bill Number 5925, an act making the position of a cooperative officer mandatory in the municipal, city, and provincial levels, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we recognize the Honorable Swan Singh for her sponsorship speech and open the period of amendments and interpellations. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? The distinguished sponsor, Honorable Congresswoman Swan Singh, is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no...
Mr. Speaker, allow me to deliver my sponsorship speech. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues,
Please proceed.
as one of the principal authors of this bill, I rise today to sponsor House Bill Number 5925, which seeks to make the position of a cooperatives officer mandatory in the local government units. Cooperatives, as we all may know, have always played a significant role in the country's economic growth and development. They are regarded as one of the pillars of people empowerment and are highly organized in many countries of the world because they inspire people to actively participate and contribute to the progress and development. Consequently, cooperatives aid in achieving our desired social change. In developing countries like the Philippines, cooperatives are essential and fundamental to community development and poverty reduction. In my district in the province of Nueva Ecija, I have been witness to the success of many cooperatives. Truly, they have contributed to our government's effort to uplift the living conditions of our people, especially those who are underprivileged and marginalized. As of December 31, 2018, the Cooperative Development Authority, CDA of the Philippines, reported that there are around 18,065 cooperatives existing throughout the country. And in that same year, 1,157 new cooperatives registered themselves to the CDA and were expected to run fervently the following year. These numbers include farmer cooperatives whose core membership includes marginalized farmers and fisherfolks. In the recent years, we have all paid witness to the continuing decline of the agricultural sector in the country, especially with the advent of globalization and free trade. In this age, where countries of the world are fast becoming interdependent, cooperatives can factor in the vibrant economic force that will fuel the engines of economic growth and empower our people to become potent forces of our society. Mr. Speaker, the Local Government Code of 1991 does not provide for the compulsory position of cooperatives officer in our local government units. This bill then seeks to create the position of a cooperatives officer in our local government units, particularly our municipalities, cities, and provinces. In this proposed measure, one of the duties of a cooperatives officer will be to develop plans and strategies in consultation with the cooperative sector. In this way, the concerns of the cooperatives in the municipalities, cities, and provinces are in line with the sustainable development plans of the national government. This will then ultimately further the development of our cooperatives and consequently of our great nation. Cooperatives are nothing more like an average business that runs and depends on its people. As such, they must operate efficiently and effectively, be properly managed, and must be financially viable. Without the proper assistance from our local government units, we cannot expect our cooperatives, especially those that are just starting out, to be immediately successful without the appropriate guidance and assistance. This bill then now aims to address this problem by making the position of cooperatives officer mandatory in local government units, seeing that educating and training the membership of cooperatives pose as quite a challenge in our country. Many of our cooperatives closed down after some time because of their inability to indoctrinate, educate, and train their members. This inability to sustain cooperatives thus requires us to pass such a measure so that we may be able to provide more guidance and support to our cooperatives. With this short note, Mr. Speaker, I humbly ask for the immediate passage of this bill that I know will serve as a great help to our existing cooperatives in the country. Thank you and magandang hapon po.
The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member of the House who indicated his desire or her desire to interpolate, I hereby move to close the period of interpolations. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? There being none, motion is hereby approved. Majority Floor Leader.
Speaker, I move for a 1-minute suspension.
Session is suspended for 1 minute. Session is hereby resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of House Bill number 5925 is that we've just closed the period of interpellations. Mr. Speaker, I now move we open the period of amendments. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to approve.
Amendment. Sorry, may amendment.
There's a motion to approve. There's a motion to open the period of amendments. Is there any objection? There being none, the chair hears none. Motion is hereby approved. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being... Mr. Speaker, I move we recognize the Honorable Romualdo to impute his individual amendment. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The distinguished gentleman from Camiguin, Honorable Romualdo, is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we'd just like to propose one amendment to the bill. This is on page 3, line 12. We propose that the word appointment be deleted and replaced with the word position. And that is our amendment, proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker.
What is the pleasure of the distinguished sponsor?
I accept, Mr. Speaker.
The amendment is hereby accepted. Will you kindly put it into a motion?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
I move that since the author has accepted the amendment of the Honorable Romualdo, I move that it be put in the records as part of the amendments. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? The chair hears none. The amendment is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, there being no more amendments, I move that we now close the period of amendments. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the motion? The chair hears none. The motion is hereby approved. Distinguished Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we suspend for a minute. I so move.
Session suspended for 1 minute.
Hindi lang napansin siguro yun. Kasi officer siya of cooperatives.
Okay.
Oo.
Session resumed.
Mr. Speaker, I move we recognize the Honorable Romualdo. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Congressman Romualdo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have just one more amendment, and this is with regard to the title of the measure. We propose just to add the word "s" after the word cooperative, and so the title would read as follows: An act making the position of a cooperatives officer mandatory in the municipal, city, and provincial levels, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991.
Is the proposed amendment acceptable to the sponsor?
I accept, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, since the distinguished sponsors accepted the proposed amendment, I move that we put that in the records and make sure that it's part of the amendments. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to put that on record. Any objection? There being none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, again, since there are no more amendments, I move we close the period of amendments. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to close the period of amendment. Any objection? There being none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status of this bill is that we have already closed the period of interpellations and amendments. I move, Mr. Speaker, that we vote on second reading. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to put it on vote for second reading. Any objection? There being none, motion is carried. Those who are in favor, say aye. Aye. Those who are not in favor, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move we suspend for a minute in order to give the
1 minute suspension.
next sponsor time to go to the podium.
Session resumes. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the guests of Honorable Paulo Z. Duterte, our Deputy Speaker. They are the barangay captain officials of the 1st Congressional District of Davao City, Barangay Captain Ariel Lagmay, Lito Makiling, Nestor Sirunay, Jupiter Giorgio, Arnel Policarpio, Erlan Guevara, Fedelino Almirante, Mark Anthony Cayetano, Rolando Bantayan, Joel Landeros Sr., Eddie Ilaw, Pasito Caniete, Edmundo Altiso Sr., Gary Bariga, Benedicto Ramento Jr., George Balite, Jesimar Colaste, and Mr. Jaime Gore.
The barangay captains of the 1st District of Davao City are hereby recognized. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we also recognize the guests of Honorable Sarah Jane Ilago, the representative of Kabataan Party List. They are the workers of Cosmic Enterprises Incorporated, Independent Labor Union, Bukluran ng Manggagawang Pilipino, headed by Mr. Rico Marceliana, Ami Paluga Maguate, Chadley Sadora, Jerinol Daigo, Joji Sunugbohan, Roy Bacalso, Ponciano Cabanag, Nenita Montaliana, Yostiquio Polinar, and Mr. Gilbert Benlot.
The guest of Congresswoman Sara Ilago is recognized. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we also recognize the presence of the guests of Honorable Jose L. Atienza Jr. of Buhay Party List. They are the senior high school students, grade 11 and 12 of Kids World Christian Academy. Mr. Rogelio Caidic, senior high school teacher, and Pastor Menard Amoroso, school director and owner.
Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we also recognize the guests of the Honorable Luisa Lloren Quaresma of Lone District of Nueva Vizcaya. They are the barangay officials of the municipality of Bayumbong, Nueva Vizcaya, headed by Barangay Captain Segudio Ferrer, Barangay Captain Ronnie Acob, Barangay Captain Rodinante Barnacha, Barangay Captain Benjamin Pagtulingan, Barangay Captain Efren Bausel, Barangay Captain Arthur Fortes, Barangay Captain Jerry Butali, Barangay Captain Wilfredo Soliven, and Barangay Captain Amado Domelon.
The guest of Congresswoman Quaresma is recognized. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider local bills under the calendar of business for Thursday and Friday, and pursuant to our rules, allow me to put forth an omnibus motion for the consideration of the following measures. House Bill number 1079 under Committee Report 180. House Bill number 5889 under Committee Report 182. House Bill number 497 under Committee Report number 183. House Bill number 5890 under Committee Report 184. House Bill number 5891 under Committee Report 185. House Bill number 5892 under Committee Report 186. House Bill number 5919 under Committee Report 188. House Bill number 5920 under Committee Report 189. House Bill number 5921 under Committee Report 190. House Bill number 1497 under Committee Report 192. House Bill number 656 under Committee Report 193. House Bill number 5944 under Committee Report 194. House Bill number 5945 under Committee Report 195. House Bill number 5955 under Committee Report 196. House Bill number 6030 under Committee Report 201. House Bill number 6035 under Committee Report 202, House Bill number 6036 under Committee Report 203, House Bill number 6087 under Committee Report 205, House Bill number 6088 under Committee Report 206, and finally House Bill number 6144 under Committee Report 215. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to approve, there is an omnibus motion to adopt on second reading the following local bills. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate, and I move that we consider the respective explanatory notes as the sponsorship of the said measure.
Any objection? There being none, motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate on the said local bills, I move that we terminate the period of sponsorship and debate.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments and approve the committee amendments, if any, as contained in the respective committee reports of the aforementioned bills.
There is a motion. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no individual amendments, I move that we now terminate the period of amendments.
There is a motion to terminate the period of amendment. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that we vote on second reading on the bills earlier mentioned.
All those in favor of the bill say aye.
Aye.
Those in favor and not in favor say nay. The ayes have it. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we resume consideration on House Bill number 5832 under Committee Report 142, and that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the measure.
Any objection? There being none, motion is carried. The Secretary General is hereby directed to read.
House Bill 5832, an act creating the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment, defining its mandate, powers and functions, appropriating funds, therefore.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the parliamentary status is that we are currently in the period of sponsorship and debate. To continue his sponsorship of the measure, I move that the chairman of the Committee on Government Reorganization, Representative Marvi Marino, be recognized. And to continue his interpellation, I likewise move that the gentleman from the 1st District of Albay, Representative Edsa Lagman, be recognized.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Representative Marino is hereby recognized. And to interpolate, Congressman Edsel Lagman, you are recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we know from the distinguished sponsor whether he has now a copy of Republic Act number 8042 or the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have a copy of RA 8042, Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act.
I have asked this question relative to Republic Act number 8042 because it is a basic statute determinative of the creation of the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment. May I direct the distinguished sponsor to Section 2C of the Declaration of Policies, which indelibly pronounces the national policy on the deployment of Filipino workers overseas. For the record, may we request the distinguished sponsor to read this particular Section 2C on the Declaration of Policies under Republic Act number 8042.
Mr. Speaker, letter C of Section 2 under the Declaration of Policies states, while recognizing the significant contribution of Filipino migrant workers to the national economy through their foreign exchange remittances, the state does not promote overseas employment as a means to sustain economic growth and achieve national development. The existence of the Overseas Employment Program rests solely on the assurance that the dignity and the fundamental human rights and freedoms of the Filipino citizen shall not at any time be compromised or violated. The state, therefore, shall continuously create local employment opportunities and promote the equitable distribution of wealth and benefits of development.
In essence, what this declaration of policy would say is that the export of Filipino manpower is not a continuing policy for two reasons. One, the state does not promote overseas employment as a means to sustain economic growth and achieve national development. And two, the state shall continuously create local employment opportunities and promote the equitable distribution of wealth and the benefits of development. Does the distinguished sponsor concur to this restatement of the essence of the national policy?
I agree with the gentleman from Abay, Mr. Speaker.
May we know whether House Bill number 5832 has any reference to this national policy?
Mr. Speaker, the creation of this new department is basically about the structure of how the agencies will be consolidated into one department so that the Filipino overseas workers will only have to go through one agency in terms of their needs as far as their protection and also all the other things that they are requesting. The promotion of employment, this overseas employment, is not actually the priority of the agency. In fact, the new department to be created has a sunset provision in which 10 years to be reviewed by Congress as far as its there is a mandatory review of this department in case this is created under Section 25. The reality is it is a need right now by our overseas Filipino workers because of the number of overseas workers that we have. But times could change that it may not be, or it may be reviewed as, like I said, 10 years from now, or 10 years from its effectivity.
Well, that answer, unfortunately, does not respond to my question. My question is the national policy stated in Republic Act number 8042 reflected in the House Bill number 5832 creating the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the policy does not change as far as the creation of jobs here locally is concerned. So it does not change the policy of our national government. We are only responding to the need of our overseas Filipino workers as far as the creation of this department.
What does the policy declaration of House Bill number 5832 provide?
Section 2C. Section 2C.
On Section 2C, under the Declaration of Policy, which I will read, while recognizing the significant contribution of Filipino overseas, including overseas Filipino workers to the national economy through their foreign remittances, investment, the state does not promote overseas employment as a means to sustain economic growth. The state overseas employment program rests solely on the assurance that the dignity and human rights of OFWs shall neither be compromised nor violated. The state, therefore, shall continuously create local employment opportunities and promote equitable distribution of wealth and the benefits of development. Towards this end, the state shall continually aim to make overseas employment a choice and not a necessity for every Filipino.
In other words, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, this bill under consideration practically repeats verbatim the national policy expressed under Republic Act number 8042. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. Like I said, there were some similarities as far as the policy, and it is the same policy. The only thing that this House Bill 5832 will do is it will create a structure in which the agency will exist, and all the other bureaus will be merged into one for the benefit of our OFW. And it is also the request of our OFWs by and large.
Just to express what is obvious, may I quote the declaration of policy under the proposed House Bill number 5832. 1. The state does not promote overseas employment as a means to sustain economic growth and achieve national development. And 2, the state shall continuously create local employment opportunities and promote equitable distribution of wealth and the benefits of development. These are verbatim copy of the Declaration of Policy under Republic Act number 8042. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Speaker.
This bill, House Bill number 5832, proposes the creation of 5 undersecretaries. Is that correct?
At least 5, Mr. Speaker.
But the 5 undersecretaries are enumerated in the bill.
Yes, sir. That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
May we know whether, consistent with the national policy already stated by the distinguished sponsor, is there an undersecretary for the generation of domestic employment?
There is no undersecretary for the, particularly the domestic employment.
Despite the national policy that the state shall continuously create local employment opportunities and promote equitable employment and promote equitable distribution of wealth and the benefits of development, there is no undersecretary for the generation of domestic employment. Now, is there an undersecretary for OFW reintegration?
Mr. Speaker, that would be under the attached agency, which is the OWA. So there's no undersecretary.
Now, my question is there an undersecretary?
That is also an undersecretary position, but it is an attached agency.
It's only an attached agency. The proposed department will have administrative jurisdiction, but no control over OWA. My question is there an undersecretary for the reintegration of OFWs?
There is none, Mr. Speaker. It will still be under the function of the OWA, which has an undersecretary position.
Now, why is it, despite the declaration of policy that the export of Filipino manpower is not a continuing policy of the government? Why is it that there is no undersecretary for the generation of domestic employment as well as an undersecretary specifically for the reintegration of OFW? Is this design or an oversight?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the OWA has the primary responsibility.
The OWA has very different and various objectives and functions. But an undersecretary for OFW integration has a very specific function. Why is it that there is no such undersecretary proposed in the bill, and also an undersecretary for the generation of domestic employment, considering that the national policy is that the export of Filipino manpower overseas is not a continuing policy?
The creation of undersecretaries is not limited to 5 undersecretaries, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it can also be created later on when the agency is created. But the setup right now is that OWA is the attached agency, and that too will be reviewed. Under this law, it will also be reviewed, and it could be part of the department later, as included in the provisions of this House bill.
My question is, the bill enumerates 5 undersecretaries. Why is it that very important positions of undersecretaries, consistent with the national policy, are not included in the bill?
It was not included, like I said, Mr. Speaker, because the OWA has the primary responsibility as far as that reintegration is concerned. But it doesn't prevent the agency from creating another undersecretary for the purposes of just the creation of this department and budgetary concerns. It was not created, it did not create a specific undersecretary, like I mentioned, Mr. Speaker.
May we know whether under the charter of OWA, one of its principal functions is for the reintegration of OFWs? Can you go over the charter of OWA?
Under the OWA Charter, which is Section 35, Benefits and Services to OFW, reintegration of OFWs, taking into consideration the needs of women migrant workers, shall be one of the core programs of OWA. In this regard, and for purposes of policy and program coordination, the National Reintegration Center for OFWs, created under Republic Act 10022, shall be an attached office of OWA. So it is included as far as the for benefits and services to OFWs on the OWA Charter, Mr. Speaker.
But that is not the only function of OWA, is it not?
That's correct, among others, Mr. Speaker.
Now, in what part of the bill or provision of the bill is the OWA administrator considered as an undersecretary of the Department of Filipinos overseas and foreign employment.
Mr. Speaker, it is not actually stated in this bill, but since he is under the administrative control of the Cabinet Secretary, that would be similar to Undersecretary position.
Well, what is that is stated in the bill is not stated at all. So we could not submit that the OWA administrator is equivalent to an undersecretary for OFW integration. Now, let me go to another function of the OWA. Is the OWA charged with the generation of domestic employment under its charter?
No, Mr. Speaker, only overseas.
It is not. So there is a need for an undersecretary for generation of domestic employment because that is the national policy. Since export of Filipino manpower is not a continuing policy. Both the Republic Act 8042 as well as the House Bill number 5832 underscores that the state shall continuously create local employment opportunities, and that is not reflected in the bill with respect to the creation of positions for undersecretaries. So we are not giving meaning to the policy spelled out in RA number 8042 as well as in House Bill number 5832. Is that a correct statement?
Mr. Speaker, the domestic workers, if they are considered as reintegrated or repatriated here, that would be under the job responsibility of DOLE. So that's why it was specified that reintegration and repatriation, local employment will be under the DOLE, which is the main core function of DOLE.
But with the creation of the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment, the functions of DOLE with respect to migrant workers are assumed by the proposed department. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
So we should not be referring to DOLE anymore because DOLE, the functions of DOLE with respect to OFWs will be assumed by the new department.
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. Once they are reintegrated, the DOLE will assume the jurisdiction over those domestic workers.
May we know whether the distinguished sponsor has a copy of the Philippine Development Plan for 2017 to 2022?
One minute, Mr. Speaker.
May I request for a suspension so that my time will not be consumed?
Move to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute suspension.
Alin dito?
Forbiding a future revenue enjoyment. Just like infrastructure, begin laying down a strong fundamental society, globally competitive knowledge economy. Unemployment rate will decline from 5.5 to 3.5 in 2022. Yun ang gusto ng panic. So that, you don't have to, no, you reduce the unemployment rate to 5.5, that will be better. And then again, you connect it to the oil. I-connect mo siya OFW. May commitment lang na ibaba lang sa 5.5 to 3.5, 3 to 5%. 3.5 to 20%. Pag-alis ni Duterte. Lagay mo na yung poverty incidence now stands at 17 to 14%.
Saan yun?
Poverty incidence? Alam ko yan.
Oo nga, saan yun?
Wala dyan.
Ito.
Ito. Yan. This is a fair sequence.
Mr. Speaker.
Joke.
Session resumes. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the guests of our Deputy Speaker, Honorable Michael Romero. The guests are from the Australian Embassy. Ms. Fleur Calcut, Second Secretary, Embassy's Political Officer, involved in work relating to national and local politics. Ms. Amanda Fedelino, Researcher Officer of the Embassy. If we can recognize them, Mr.
Please
Speaker.
stand up to be recognized. The guest of Congressman Michael Romero is recognized. The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, also with us today, the guests of Honorable Representative from PhilReca Party List, Honorable Presley De Jesus. Guest from Electric Cooperative from Samelco, Gilda Lause, Ulysses M. Abasolo, Mercy Gadi Kaboboy, Marichan Pimentel, Rowella Mendova, and Dolores Cayas.
Kindly stand to be recognized. Welcome to the House of Representatives.
Very big to be...
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may we recognize the guests of Honorable Eric Goyap of ACT-CIS Party List. And Congressman Eric Yap is also the Legislative Caretaker of Lone District of Benguet. They are the following: Mayor Faustino Aquizan of Kabayan Benguet, Barangay Captains and SB members of Kabayan Benguet. From the municipality of Kabayan Benguet, we have Vice Mayor Basilio Louis Dawal, Chief of Police Peter D. Camsol Jr., SB members Councilor Minas, Councilor Ngen Zayan, Councilor Badival, Councilor Basquial, Councilor Lamsis, and the barangay captains headed by Roy Tomilas, Pelino Bugnay, Efren Teliama, Mike Botangen, Lope Atas, Eric Postino, Agosto Tasing, Amy Belting, Sofronio Bayas, Pio Calansi, Sandy Wais, and Mr. Irvin Busilan.
Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Floor Leader.
Wala. Sa akin, wala.
The parliamentary status is, we are now in the period of interpellation. Is the sponsor ready?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Congressman Lagman,
Yes, sir.
please proceed with your interpellation.
So, for how long has it been on?
Congressman Lagman, please proceed with your interpellation.
May we know whether
That's fine.
the distinguished sponsor has a copy now of
that's
the
good.
Philippine Development Plan
Sige, thanks.
for 2017 and 2022, which is prepared principally by NEDA and has the imprimatur of the President of the Republic.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Included here, as far as I know, Mr. Speaker, only it mentions certain strategies to be achieved by 2022, which includes the Philippines will have a high-level human development by 2022. Unemployment rate will decline from 5.5% to 3.5% in 2022. There will be a greater trust in government and in society. Individuals and communities will be more resilient. Filipinos will have a greater drive for innovation. Those are the strategies included in the plan.
Three major strategies for Filipinos overseas and migrant workers do not include the establishment or creation of a Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
The national policy that the export of Filipino manpower is not continuing and that it is not consistent with to sustain economic growth and achieve national development is consistent with the origin of the export of Filipino manpower. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Then what is the origin of the export of Filipino manpower overseas?
As far as I know, Mr. Speaker, the Filipinos have been working abroad even in the 1950s, Mr. Speaker, as far as, for example, working in Hawaii, to work in the agricultural farms in Hawaii, and also it was in the 1960s and the 1970s, which we have a lot of skilled Filipinos who went abroad, mainly United States, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I am not talking of the sporadic deployment of Filipino manpower abroad. Because if we do that, we can even go back to the galleon trade, which was the start of displacement of Filipinos abroad. What I'm asking about the advent of this policy during the time of President Marcos. It was just a stopgap measure to give opportunities for jobless Filipinos to seek employment abroad and to cash in on petrodollars awash in the Middle East. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Speaker.
So it was a stopgap measure, not a permanent measure. But the establishment of a Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Employment would further incentivize labor migration. Is that correct?
Mr. Speaker, I think we just
we are just responding to the present situation in which we have a lot of Filipino, overseas Filipino workers. But again, it is not the policy of the government to send the Filipinos abroad. It is their primary, it is their right to work abroad. It is just so that we have a lot of Filipinos, 10 million Filipinos working abroad. So it is our duty to take care of these Filipinos working abroad. So it is, in fact, this creation of the department has a limited time, in which case 10 years. It is not really to promote overseas workers for as long as we are working on job creation and our economy locally. There is a chance that we don't have to send Filipinos abroad. Specifically, personally, the domestic helpers working abroad should not be a priority. In this case, it is not really a policy of the government. It is just a response to the clamor of our kababayans, in which case they voiced it out to the president. And not only to the president, most of us here have constituents voicing out the creation of this department. So it is the voice of the people that is the main reason why we are creating this department. It is not in the plan of the national government, but it is the clamor of our OFWs that this creation will be based on. In fact, a lot of since the 16th Congress, this has been a proposal, and when the president was President Duterte became president, it is the primary, specifically during the SONA, it is the primary request of the president as a clamor also of our Filipino workers abroad and their families, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, would I kindly request the distinguished sponsor to shorten his answers because my time is being eroded.
The sponsor is hereby directed to be brief with his answers.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Is the distinguished sponsor saying that the establishment of this new department will incentivize labor migration?
No, Mr. Speaker.
It will not. On the contrary, it will incentivize labor migration. Now, is the creation of this new department a campaign promise of the incumbent president?
It is not a campaign promise since he is not really running for election, but
No,
it is,
when he ran for president, did he not promise that in his incumbency to address the needs of OFWs, that a department of overseas Filipinos and foreign employment will be created?
I think I remember that during
That
the
was a
SONA it
promise.
mentioned. Yes,
That was a promise.
Mr. Speaker. Yes,
And he reiterated that in his SONA before the Congress.
that's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Now, has the distinguished sponsor gone over the article of then Professor Pernia, now the Secretary of NEDA, with respect to the detriments of labor migration?
No, Mr. Speaker. May I be refreshed what article it is?
Now, If we have time, most probably we will discuss that article further, but I'm running out of time. Now, since President Marcos institutionalized labor migration under the Labor Code of 1974, has there been any president after him who was deterred from such policy?
Not that I remember, Mr. Speaker, only now.
Yeah. Well, in the case of President Corazon Aquino, she resumed the licensing of overseas employment agencies. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
For the first time, the Filipino overseas contract workers were heralded as bagong bayani. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
What do we understand from the affiliation that OFWs are bagong bayani?
Well, number one, the value of contribution to our economy, which is the remittances, which as of right now, it amounts to 2018 around 32 billion US dollars, and 2019 it is 34 billion. Aside from alam naman po natin na ang ibig sabihin ng bayani ay sila ay nagtatrabaho abroad, nagpapakahirap upang maitaguyod ang kanilang mga pamilya. So that's what I understand why OFWs are regarded as bagong bayani.
Well, actually, it is affirmation of the Filipino concept of the sufferings and sacrifices of a bayani. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
And truly, these OFWs are sacrificing and suffering in their host countries. Is that correct?
Yes, they are sacrificing, but not all are suffering, Mr. Speaker, because I also know some great stories about OFW workers and also migrants who have been successful.
There are more the exceptions than the rule. Well, let's go to the time of President Fidel Ramos. The export of Filipino manpower continued during that time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Although he is credited with the enactment of Republic Act 4082. Is that correct?
88042, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
R88042.
During the time of President Joseph Estrada, again, there was the continuous exodus of Filipino workers abroad. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Now let us go to the incumbency of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. How would you describe the presidential policies on OFWs during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo?
It was a continuation of the previous policies, as far as I can remember, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, it was not really just a continuation. There was an aggressive promotion of overseas employment to prop up the economy. In fact, included in the medium-term Philippine Development Plan of 2004 to 2010 is the goal of sending 1 million overseas workers every year. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
She also labeled domestic workers abroad as supermaids. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
She likened OFWs to expats in their host countries. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
She issued Proclamation Number 76, Series of 2001, declaring the year 2002 as the year of the overseas employment providers or the employment agencies, despite the fact that there were so many violations committed by these agencies, including the exaction of exorbitant fees. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
And finally, during her time, she called the OFWs the backbone of the new global workforce and our greatest export. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
All of this would only show that there was a departure from this stopgap policy of exporting Filipino labor. During the time of President Aquino III, what was the situation with respect to migrant workers?
During the President Noynoy Aquino, it was still a continuation of the same policy, Mr. Speaker.
But was there an attempt to depart from that policy of foreign employment of Filipino workers?
I don't remember any specific policy, Mr. Speaker, but I guess the counter to that is generation of local employment and local economy.
Well, let me put this on record that President Aquino III expressed his goal of moving, quote, from a government that treats its people as an export commodity and as a means to foreign exchange, disregarding the social costs to Filipino families, to a government that creates jobs at home so that working abroad will be a choice rather than a necessity. And when its citizens do choose to become OFWs, their welfare and protection will still be the government's priority. Do you remember that statement of President Aquino III?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
However, the fact is, even with this attempt to depart, there was a continuing flow of migrant labor from the Philippines to almost 200 states and territories worldwide. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Now, let us go to the incumbent President, Rodrigo Duterte. As we have already said and admitted by the distinguished sponsor, one of his campaign promises was the creation of a Department of OFWs. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
And this bill is supposed to be in compliance with that promise. Is that correct?
Yes, as well as a need, Mr. Speaker.
He also endorsed the setting up of one-stop service centers at the POA to expedite the documentation and processing of applicants for overseas employment. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And finally, the intended enactment of the Department of Filipino Overseas and Foreign Employment. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So in other words, all of the presidents after Marcos virtually did not depart from the export of foreign labor, despite the fact that it is started as a stopgap measure, and despite the fact of the national policy provided for in Republic Act number 8042. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Now, the creation of this department should not be in a vacuum. We should depend on data and statistics. I heard several times the distinguished sponsor saying that there are currently 10 million OFWs across the world. Is that correct?
Approximately, Mr. Speaker.
Approximately. When you say 10 million, these 10 million are currently employed abroad.
Some of them are permanently staying in the...
In other words, this 10 million is not limited to OFWs. It includes Filipinos overseas who are permanently residing abroad or even has changed their nationality from Filipino to a foreign citizenship. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the breakdown is 48% permanent, 41% temporary, 11% irregular.
Now, in absolute figures, more or less, out of the 10 million, how many in 2019 were OFWs?
All of those are OFWs, Mr. Speaker. The 10,238,640.
So this is different from your previous answer, distinguished sponsor, that the 10 million would consist of OFWs and Filipinos overseas, because there is a distinction between the two. Now, let me just be clear about this. How many in 2019 were OFWs or contract workers?
2019. This is 2013. Mr. Speaker, the documented deployment for 2017 is 2,044,877. For 2018, it's 2,097,589. This is the overseas employment statistics annual deployment.
In other words, when we talk of 10 million, that is a gross approximation, because the true data is that it is much less than 10 million. As the distinguished sponsor has admitted in 2017 and 2018, the number of OFWs did not reach 3 million. It was in the vicinity of over 2 million only. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker, but the purpose of this bill is also to address all the overseas Filipinos, including the immigrants from abroad, for them to return to this country or also invest in our country. So the creation of this department will also address that, all the 10 million overseas Filipino workers.
Now, historically, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, with respect to previous bills filed in the 16th and 17th Congresses, what was the thrust of the bills? Was it not the creation of a department for OFWs?
I remember 17th Congress, Mr. Speaker.
How about in the current Congress? What was the principal purpose of the various bills? Creation of department for OFWs or for all Filipinos overseas?
Well, basically, it's for OFWs, but it includes the all Filipinos overseas. As far as the scope of the department will be later on.
I was reviewing the bills filed in the 18th Congress. Majority of the bills proposed the creation of a department of OFWs. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
But eventually, what was reported out by the committee was to cover all Filipinos abroad, including both Filipinos overseas as well as OFWs. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker, because the immigrants are already well-to-do abroad.
But with respect to Filipinos overseas who are not contract workers, is it not that they are already subject to the jurisdiction of the Department of Foreign Affairs?
As of now, yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
That's why
they are.
we are creating this department so that they will be covered under this department.
And there is a feeling that the coverage of the proposed new department was increased to cover all Filipinos abroad. Is that to justify further the creation of this department because the clientele would be more than the number of overseas Filipino workers because they would now include all Filipinos abroad.
No, Mr. Speaker. In fact, OWA members, as of right now, active and inactive, already amounts to 8.6 million. So, based on that, as of December 2019, we have a lot of constituents clamoring for the creation of the department. In fact, that was the result of our committee hearings when it was held.
Can we possibly hear again the figure on how many OFWs are members of OWA?
Members of OWA, active and inactive, is 8.6 million.
And what is the basis of that figure?
These are from OWA records.
OWA. Now, so if there were about 2.3 million overseas Filipinos, Filipino contract workers or OFWs in 2018, what is the latest figure on the number of OFWs in 2019. Do you have that figure, or there is no figure yet disclosed?
The active OWA members as of right now amounts to 1.375 million.
But you cannot depend, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, on the figures of OWA, because the figures of OWA would include both current OFWs employed abroad and those who have already returned. So that will not give us the proper perspective. My question is, in 2019, how many OFWs are abroad compared to the 2.3 million in 2018 per the report of the POA or the concerned government agency?
Mr. Speaker, I only have the data for 2019 up to the first semester, which
And what is
amounts
the data?
1.1 million, 1.128.
So it is much less than the alleged 10 million. Because this 10 million would include all other Filipinos abroad, known as the Filipinos overseas, and they would also include the collation of all overseas Filipino workers, both currently employed and those who have already returned. So let us not try to magnify the figure to justify the creation of this agency. Now, may we know from the distinguished sponsor, based on their records, the various reasons why Filipinos work overseas?
Well, number one, economic reasons, job employment, among others, Mr. Speaker.
Well, what are the others?
Well, most of our Filipino workers, they always think that it's always greener in the other side of, if they work abroad. But that's not always the case. In fact, I have spoken to other businessmen that they are already there's already a shortage of workers here in our own country. So they are appealing to some of our OFWs to return and work here instead.
Well, I have counted 8 major reasons why Filipinos work overseas. The distinguished sponsor is correct. One and foremost is the unstable economic situation in the Philippines. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Will the Department of Overseas Filipinos and Foreign Employment solve this problem and remove this reason for overseas employment?
I'm not sure if it will totally solve the problem, but it will be very well be part of the solution, because before they even be deployed, before they can be deployed, there's already a program for them to let them know about the rights and what's going to happen abroad. And also, we are also including in this department the appeal to all the other immigrants abroad who are also doing well. So this department will not 100% solve the situation, but it will be faster for our Filipinos to learn more about what's going to happen to them when they return here in our country, because there's information dissemination, and also part of the job of this department is to work on early reintegration for our OFWs.
Well, I would submit that the creation of this new department will not solve this economic problem because this department is not anchored on the formulation and implementation of economic policies. Another reason why Filipinos work overseas is the high unemployment rate in the country. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
What is the latest figure on the unemployment rate and the underemployment rate in the Philippines?
Honorable Lagman, kindly wind up your interpellation.
Well, as a matter of fact, I would be asking for a suspension because,
You're not yet satisfied with the answers.
well, definitely most of the answers are not responsive to my question.
Can you make that into a motion so that we
I
can
move
suspend?
that the interpellation of this representation be suspended for the time being so that I could confer with the distinguished sponsor, and may I request for an additional 30 minutes to wind up my interpellation.
Yeah. There is a motion. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 5832. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, again, we would like to recognize the guests that were recognized earlier. However, they weren't present. So again, we would like to recognize the guests of the House of Representatives from the Australian Embassy, the guests of Deputy Speaker Michael Romero and Congressman Eric Pineda. From the Australian Embassy, Ms. Fleur Calcut.
Please stand up.
And Ms. Amanda Fedelino.
Welcome to the House of Representatives. Thank you. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend.
Session suspended.
it shorter?
Shorter.
Nice. No. Tomorrow na tayo. Okay na? Tito Butch. Tito Pong Butch.
Session resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer the following House resolutions to the appropriate committees. House Resolution 641 to the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 642 to the Committee of Overseas Workers Affairs. House Resolution 643 to the Committee on Disaster Management. House Resolution 644 to the Committee on Transportation. House Resolution 646 to the Committee on Public Works and Highways. House Resolution 647 to the Committee on Transportation. House Resolution 649 to the Committee on Transportation. House Resolution 652 to the Committee on Population and Family Relations. House Resolution 653 to the Committee on Health. House Resolution 656 to the Committee on Senior Citizens. House Resolution 664 to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture. House Resolution 691 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education. House Resolution 693 to the Committee on Higher and Technical Education. House Resolution 694 to the Committee on Health. House Resolution 695 to the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability and Public Accounts. House Resolution 699 to the Committee on Disaster Management. House Resolution 704 to the Committee on Public Works and Highways. And House Resolution 705 to the Committee on Agriculture and Food. So move.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other agenda to be tackled in today's session, I move that we adjourn until tomorrow, February 19, Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Session adjourned.
May precious. Jeff, sama ka.